Hey guys, it is Becca Lori Hector here for Becca's Backyard Live. So welcome back to Becca's Backyard Live. I was not here last week. I took a little bit of a vacation, like not a huge vacation, but a tiny vacation, right? A vacation that I really, really needed. Um, and so I'm excited to say that I did accomplish a lot of things that I had to accomplish, but I didn't take like a traditional vacation, I guess I want to say. I didn't not work in terms of vacation, and I didn't not do things. It wasn't all rest and relax and whatnot. What I basically needed was a break from all of the social stuff, was a break from like all of the appointments and the Zoom meetings and all of the stuff that requires all that extra social things. So that's what I took off of last week, and that included YouTube, right? It included a little bit of social with you guys. So I'm glad to be back. I'm not in any way, shape, or form all that much more rested, but I do feel less drained, less like I'm gonna like be exhausted tomorrow kind of feeling. And so I got a lot of things done that I had to do, a lot of paperwork, catch up on a lot of things. And of course, what? We did Unit 2. That's right. Last Wednesday, we tackled and continued our journey on the path to a quality autistic life, and we started Unit 2. And I know you guys were saying how overwhelmed you were, and how I'm still hearing from you guys that you're processing, and it was so much information, which is magic to my ears, is what it is, because it means that I'm giving you information that you think is important enough that you are using your brain and your spoons to think about it. And that means I did my job. And that makes me happy that I did my job, and that you guys got your money's worth and all of that stuff. And our sponsors got our money's worth. And it was fantastic. And so I love the content of Unit 2. It is a lot. Unit 3 is going to be fun, you guys. It's also loaded, but loaded in a different way, right? It's about maintenance of what we talk about in Unit 2. So I encourage you, if you have not taken part in Self-Defined Living, A Path to a Quality Autistic Life, that you go to my website and check out the course. You can catch up on the replays. I hope to have Unit 2 replay up this week. If not this week, then next week for sure. And we'll have that up so people can catch up. And then, of course, Unit 3 will be swinging around September 16th. And I have a bunch of you already on the scholarship list. I am in the works of getting us sponsors, and I will, of course, notify you as those seats become available. So if you contacted me during Unit 2 and said, can you also put me on the list for Unit 3, you are on that list, and I will let you know. If you need a scholarship seat for Unit 3, please feel free to email me at info@beccalori.com, and it's LORY.com. But for those of you that were there, I hope you're continuing to process. I hope you will replay it to yourselves, replay back the parts you need repeated, and continue to process and digest them. Of course, you have homework, but I'm not checking on you about your homework. But I do hope that you will take a look at the downloads and try some of those exercises. I think they will be helpful. So welcome, everybody. Hi, CV, Joe, Miriam, Nancy, Bill. I am so glad to see you guys here. I hope you had a fantastic time kind of watching and listening to Unit 2. And I hope, we'll do some talking about it as we move through it, right? Of course, let me remind you, those of you that did Unit 2, you have me available to you at a discounted cost for one-on-one sessions. So don't hesitate to email me to set up that one-on-one session if you need it, if you need help getting through Unit 2. In the next couple of weeks, of course, we'll be setting up our group coaching call, and that will be another good time for us to talk through Unit 2. But this is not a self-defined living course. It's just me coming back and reminding you of all of these good things in case you forgot me while I was gone. But I'm sure you didn't. And here we are. And we are ready to talk about today's topic. And it's a good one, I think. It came to me today while I was doing some things. And I decided that's what I felt like talking about today. So we are going to discuss today transitions throughout the lifespan. Right. I want to talk about transitions themselves and the struggle that we have with them and why. I want to talk about the kinds of transitions that we deal with as human beings and what transitions can teach us and how we can um, move forward from that, right? And how we can move through our transitions in a healthy way, because you can't help it, right? So let's talk about transitions. I think when we talk about transitions in the autism community, the number one transition that we talk about and that most people mean when they're talking about transitions is when we refer to transition age kids, right? And by that we mean they are transitioning from children to adulthood. So what we do is, of course, somebody has a birthday and they go from being 17 to 18, and all of a sudden they are a legal adult. They don't have to have guardianship anymore, unless that was put in place. They don't have to have somebody sign for them anymore, and they get to make adult decisions. But that is a fallacy. That is not the only transition that we process through in our lives. And in fact, that's not even the first transition that we process through as human beings. But it's the one we talk about the most, and it's the one that I am going to talk about the least, right? Because I know that there's information out there, but we all kind of move on our own schedule and we all process through transitions at a different time at a different pace. So let's talk about transitions as a whole. Let's think about those early beginnings of transitions. What are some of those transitions before we even get to this 17 turning 18 transition age thing, right? Well, first of all, let's begin with probably the one that I think strikes us all the most. I think we're old enough to recognize this transition and really struggle with it, and that is the transition to school life. Going from being home all the time with your parents, not really having any rules or regulations or things you have to do, and all of a sudden you turn 5, 6, whatever it is, and you've got to go to kindergarten and first grade, and all of a sudden you find out about this thing called school and this place you have to go that's not home, and your schedule is going to be all different, and there's a lot of unknowns, and you will be away from home in a way you've never been away from home from, right? That to me is the first big transition, and the first time that we really see some of the more common, I think, quote unquote behavioral struggles in autism start to be huge, right? I mean, I think that's the first time that we see it, right? And then, of course, when we transition from kindergarten to first grade, it's a little bit more serious, right? We have, I had half day kindergarten and then we have full day first grade. So that was another transition that I remember distinctly as a kid being one that I needed to process through. Okay. And then after that, we all go to middle school, right? And whatever transition age that is, for some of us it's sixth grade, some of us it's seventh, right? But that transition from elementary to middle school, right? All of a sudden you have to start switching classes and you have to be much more responsible for yourself, and not everyone does everything together anymore, and your classes change, right? So it's another transition that we go through, right? And that is all well before, right? We have to deal with this 17-18 thing. Then we go to the middle school, high school transition, and then eventually we get into that 17-18 place, right? And what a weird transition that is, right? All of a sudden you go to sleep one night, you're a child, you wake up the next day, you're an adult. Nonsense, I say, right? That's just not how it works. That's not what's helpful. And as autistics, if we're not prepared in some way to do a transition, then we're up shit's creek. Really, it's a tough one. But that is a place that for some of us, if we find comfort in schooling, and if that's someplace that we want to be and someplace we want to continue to be, right? We transition again, high school to college, right? And that's another huge transition, and you're taking on more adult responsibilities. Many people are doing their laundry and their dishes for the first time, right? Another big transition that is. That's one we have been focusing on the most, right? And for some of us, though, high school's the end, right? And we have to transition out of that school mode and out of that school mindset and transition into a work mindset or an employment mindset, right? And then for those of us who do go to college, we'll transition from college into that employment transition, and we'll have to go through that, right? And so far, we've really just talked about those singular transitions, the ones that we as individuals go through. But they don't end there. Transitions continue through the lifespan. What do you say? Shocked face, you say? Well, think about it. Um, After you go about in your 20s and you start, you get a handle on the employment thing or whatever, right? Maybe you meet someone and you like spending time with them and you start dating and so on and so forth, and boom, before you know it, you're transitioning into a relationship, and you're not alone in the world, and suddenly somebody else's concerns are concerns of yours, right? And that relationship can transition, of course, into marriage, which is another huge life transition, right? And then, of course, if that isn't successful and you go on to get divorced, that is another life transition that's possible, right? When we change careers, when we end or begin relationships, when we move where we're living, right? And we change our environment. All of those things, all of those times are transition periods. And because as autistics, we struggle so much with change and we love routines so much, when we have to transition, it's painful. And it's painful for all the same reasons over and over again. It's new rules, it's unexpected things, it's unknown things. It's unexpected. It could be good, it could be bad. We don't know. We can only plan so much for a transition and how to get through it, because the other side of the transition is an unknown to us, right? And so transitions are really unnerving. They're as unnerving as those small changes that we make, and if not more so, because they take a longer period, right? A transition isn't something you do overnight. A transition by nature is something that takes time and happens over an extended period. So the idea that you're going to have this discomfort as you go through this transition period, right? Not this transition switch, but this transition period, right? Makes sense. Makes sense. We will have discomfort in there. We're making changes, and that comes with discomfort. And so the idea that we have to be comfortable in our discomfort, right? And I always tell you that guy all the time, is because as we're going through all of these changes that you're making now, you're going to be in that discomfort. But because life is a cycle and you're going to cycle through that all the time, and you're going to have multiple transitions, always one. Is there always one, you guys? I swear that I swear. Anyway. So you're always going to have those transitions happening, and learning how to master your transitions and learning how to be resilient through your transitions is something that it's a skill set that we need and we need to learn. But unfortunately, it also takes practice. So for a lot of us in adulthood, as we go through transitions, we forget to be kind to ourselves, right? As children, it was a big deal that we were going through transitions. And it's as though in adulthood, right, we somehow stop having transitions. No, we have some of the biggest transitions in our adulthood, right? Jo was talking about how she's going to be a grandma soon, another tradition, right? Her roles are changing. Congratulations, Jo. I'm excited for you. And we're all going to continue to go through these transitions as our roles in life change, right? And like I work for myself now, right? And I had to transition into self-employment out of working for somebody else. Transitions are all over the place, you guys. The idea that we have so focused as a community on that transition age is mind-baffling to me. Totally mind-baffling to me. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about how transitions are lifetime, and how we process through them is really a matter of resilience. It's what we learn from our early transitions about how to process through them and how to prepare ourselves in whatever way we can for our own well-being. And so, people are always saying to me, how can you prepare for a transition if you don't know, if it's all the unknown and you don't know the other side? Well, preparing for a transition means preparing your self-care. preparing your schedule, thinking about your spoons, right? Making sure you have a support system in place, making sure you have places you can get information from, resources from, and kind of, setting a schedule for yourself and setting a timeline for yourself as you're going through a transition. There are some things about transitions that are the same in everyone that we can prepare for, right? We know they're going to be exhausting. We know we're going to have a gazillion questions. We know there are going to be days when we need help. We know that we'll have days where we have good days where we're like, hey, the transition's over. Secret, not over yet, right? And so we need to make sure that we plan accordingly, that we can prepare for what we do have control over and what we know. And that's going to be our personal needs, our boundaries, right? Our values, all of the things we've been working on, making sure that all of that stuff is set is the best way to prepare for those transitions. Making yourself a toolkit of some kind, right? To lean on for the bad days. That's why the mantras are great on bad days. And just to keep moving through, because there are going to be uncomfortable days and comfortable days, and it goes back and forth. And that's why transitions are so comfortable. They're so wonky and they can't choose a way to be, and it's uncomfortable. You're not sure how to respond to it and all of that stuff. And so of course it's uncomfortable, but we can do stuff to mitigate the discomfort. We can do things to prepare ourselves for that discomfort. Know that we'll need extra rest and plan for that. Know that meal planning might get difficult and plan for that. Know that we might have increased sensory needs and plan for that, right? And those are the kinds of things that we want to be thinking about as we think about transitions as a whole, and we come to understand that transitions are not a childhood thing. They're not over after we turn 18. They continue through the lifespan. We just stop calling them transitions. We call them life moments or whatever, or I don't know, whatever Facebook calls it when you have a life activity that they deem important, right? That's what a transition is. It's a big thing. And I want you guys to consider, as we kind of say goodbye for today, and you think about this topic, I want you to consider the transitions that you've been through already, right? The good ones, the bad ones, what made it bad, what made it good. And I want you to commend yourself. Of course, don't forget to celebrate that you survived and you succeeded and you're through it, right? It's a transition done, right? We do our best. We never come out unscarred and unscathed, but we do our best to walk through a transition with our heads held high, right? And we've all been there. So what can those old ones teach you? And also some thinking about transitions that might come up in the future for you. What are some possible transitions that you could see coming up in your future? And if you can see them coming up, what are some things you could do to sort of plan in advance for them? How can you prepare yourself to be the best you as you walk through that transition? That's the important stuff to think about. I'm going to take a minute and just catch up in chat and make sure that I'm not ignoring you guys. Let's see. Yeah, and I saw somebody was talking about moving, and I missed that whole thing. Um, Oh, Nancy, you're moving. You're planning a move. So Nancy's planning a move, and that is a huge, you're right, that is a humongous transition. Having just walked through it 2 years ago myself, we moved from New York City, we moved all the way to Colorado. And it is a big move. There is a lot of planning. It took us months to plan it before we even had to face the move itself. And then it takes all kinds of spoons, right, to walk through the move, to do the packing and the unpacking and the actual traveling. And it's exciting because we need those changes in environment, and we need to do those things in order to achieve our goals. And so transitions are daunting, but they're also a gateway to a better life. They can be a gateway to the next phase in which you get to be a better you, right? And so I hope that you guys will think some about this idea of transition, the idea that transitions are lifetime, and the idea that they happen across your life. And they don't just stop. They don't just happen at school age markings, right? We can think of all kinds of other ones, I'm sure. I mean, I didn't even talk about the religious and spiritual ones that you can go through, and all of that stuff. So think about them. Understand that as you're walking through this journey, there will be transitions. In fact, making a lot of the changes that you guys are making because of self-defined living is part of a transition. You're sort of in one right now. And so how can you help support yourself through this transition, right? This spiritual transition, this personal growth transition? Do some thinking on that. I would love to hear from you guys about it. I'm going to continue thinking about it myself, as I know that I'll be transitioning into a few different things as we come into the fall. I'll be taking on some new jobs and taking on some new projects. And that's going to be a transition for me too. So let's go home and think about it. Or I'm home. I'll go inside and think about it. You guys go back to what you're doing and think about it. And those of you in the UK, get some sleep, dream on it, right? And I will see you guys on Friday with Neurodiversity Newsstand. I will, of course, see you in our little self-defined living group. And I will see you out and about on the interwebs. If you have a comment for me, if you'd like to reach me about the course, if you would like a scholarship seat, if you just have a question for me, please go ahead and email me at info@beccalaurie.com. Oh, here it comes down again. We get him twice. Yeah. Couldn't just not one more minute, right? Okay. I hope that you guys will go check out the course. I hope to see you on Friday in Neurodiversity Newsstand. And I will, of course, be back here next Tuesday at the same time, 2:20 Mountain Standard Time, 4:20 Eastern Time. And I will see you guys next week. And I hope to see you around. Have a good one, you guys. Bye.